The wind moved slowly across the empty land. The world was silent, broken, and dead. Long ago it had been alive with cities, voices, and bright lights. Now there was only dust, stone, and shadows. The sky was red, filled with ash that never settled. Eli, the son of a miner, walked carefully through the ruins. He was young, but his face was already hard from work in the mines. His father always told him, "Never go near the old ruins, they are cursed, they are dangerous." But Eli was curious. Curiosity was stronger than fear. The boy moved past broken towers black with burn marks. Metal skeletons of machines lay, silent in the dust. Strange symbols were carved into stone walls, but he could not read them. The air was dry, yet it carried a faint echo, like whispers that did not belong to the wind. Eli stopped. He felt the sound inside his bones. It was soft, but steady. A rhythm, almost like breathing. He looked around. The ruins were empty, yet he could not shake the feeling of eyes watching him. His hands tightened on the small light stick he carried. He thought about turning back, but his feet kept moving forward, deeper into the ruins. The ground cracked beneath him, and Eli slipped into a hole hidden by dust. He fell into darkness, rolling onto cold stone. His light stick flickered, then glowed again. He found himself in a tunnel. The walls were smooth, shining faintly with old markings. The air smelled different here, less dry, almost alive. Eli stood, brushed off the dust, and walked forward. His heart beat faster. The sound he heard earlier was clearer now. It was coming from the end of the tunnel. The boy reached a large chamber. The roof had collapsed, but in the middle of the room stood something strange. Something he had never seen before. It was a metal pod, shaped like an egg, half buried in stone. Light still blinked weakly on its surface. The sound, the breathing was coming from inside. Eli stepped closer. His hands shook. He pressed his ear against the pod. Yes, there was life inside. He wiped away dust from a small window on the pod. His eyes widened. A face. Not human. Inside the pod lay a girl. Her skin was pale blue, almost glowing in the dim light. Her hair floated softly, as if water surrounded her. Strange patterns moved across her skin, glowing faintly like stars. She was beautiful but different. Eli stepped back, his mind racing. He had heard stories of strange beings told by the old miners at night. They spoke of creatures from the stars, of wars that destroyed worlds. He never believed them. Until now. The girl's eyes were closed. She looked peaceful, but weak. Her chest rose and fell slowly. She was alive. Somehow, against all odds, she was alive. Eli touched the pod again. The metal felt warm, pulsing like a heartbeat. He searched for a way to open it, but the controls were strange. Symbols glowed faintly, the same ones carved into the ruins outside. As he touched one of the symbols, the pod suddenly responded. Lights flared brighter than before. The ground trembled. Eli jumped back in fear. The pod made a loud hiss, and steam spilled into the chamber. The glass window cleared. The girl's eyes opened. They were not human eyes. They were large, bright, and shining with a color he had never seen, something between silver and violet. Her gaze locked onto Eli. Eli froze. His heart pounded so hard he could not breathe. For a long moment, the boy and the alien girl stared at each other, silent, the ruined world quiet around them. Then the girl raised her hand slowly, pressing it against the glass. She looked weak, desperate but not afraid. Her lips moved, forming a word Eli could not understand. The pod's lights grew stronger, filling the chamber with a glow. Strange echoes filled the tunnel, as if machines were waking after centuries of sleep. Eli stepped closer, his own hand rising without thinking. He placed it against the glass where her hand rested. At that moment, the world outside felt smaller. The dead planet, the mines, the ruins, none of it mattered. It was only him and her. But deep inside, Eli felt something else, a warning. If she was here, if she had survived, then the stories were true. This world was not just dead. It was hiding something. Something dangerous. The girl's eyes pleaded with him. She needed help. And Eli knew, even without words, that his life had just changed forever. The pod gave one final hiss. The glass cover began to open, the chamber filled with light, and the story of Eli and the alien girl truly began. The glass of the pod slid open with a sharp hiss, releasing a cold mist that crawled across the chamber floor. Eli stepped back, his breath quick and heavy. His hands trembled as he held the light stick higher, trying to see through the fog. The girl inside moved weakly. Her chest rose and fell with uneven breaths. Her glowing skin shimmered faintly, and the strange violet-silver eyes stayed locked on Eli. She tried to sit up, but her body was weak, her arms shaking as if they had not moved in years. Eli's first thought was to run. His father's words echoed in his head. "If you ever see something strange, something not human, don't touch it, don't trust it, run." But his feet did not move. Something in her gaze held him there. It was not fear. It was not danger. It was something softer, something he did not expect. She was asking for help. Eli stepped closer, his heart hammered against his chest. "Can you hear me?" he whispered. His voice echoed in the silent chamber. The girl blinked slowly, as if trying to understand. Then she spoke. A single word, soft and broken. It was not English. The sound was strange, almost like music. He could not understand it, but he felt its meaning. A plea. She reached her hand out, her fingers trembling. Eli hesitated, then reached back. His hand met hers. Her skin was warm, softer than he imagined, but it pulsed faintly with light under the surface, like a hidden energy. The moment he touched her, the chamber responded. The walls glowed faintly. Strange symbols lit up across the stone one by one, like stars waking in the dark. The air buzzed with energy. Eli pulled his hand back in shock, but the lights did not fade. Instead, the floor shook gently, and somewhere deep in the ruins, a machine hummed to life. The girl gasped. Her eyes widened with sudden fear. She whispered another word, urgent this time, sharp, like a warning. Eli looked around, nervous. Didn't know what she was saying, but he understood one thing. Someone or something might have noticed. The girl tried to stand, but her legs gave out. Without thinking, Eli caught her. She was light, almost too light, as if she had been drained of strength for centuries. Her head rested against his shoulder. Her breath was quick, and her body shook as though every movement was a battle. Eli guided her out of the pod and helped her sit against the stone wall. She clutched the glowing pendant at her neck, her fingers curling around it tightly. The pendant pulsed with the same faint light as her skin. "What are you?" Eli whispered, his voice low. The girl looked at him. She did not understand the words, but she tilted her head, studying him, her eyes full of questions too. Eli sighed. He realized that words might never work, but maybe actions would. He pulled out a piece of bread from his small pack. The miners carried food for long shifts, underground. He tore a piece and offered it to her. The girl hesitated. Her glowing eyes studied him carefully. Then, with weak hands, she accepted it. She tasted the bread, slowly chewing, and for the first time since she opened her eyes, she gave a small nod, as if to say, "Thank you." Eli felt a strange warmth inside. She was not a monster, she was not an enemy. She was just different, and she needed him. But before he could think more, the tunnel rumbled again, this time louder. Dust fell from the ceiling. A deep, metallic sound echoed through the chamber like something heavy moving far below. The girl's body tensed. She clutched Eli's arm, her eyes filled with fear. She spoke quickly in her strange language, pointing toward the tunnel they came from. Eli understood. Enough. Something was coming. He stood, helping her rise again. She leaned against him, weak but determined. Together, they moved into the tunnel. The glow from the walls followed them, as though guiding their path. The deeper they went, the stranger it became. Machines long dead flickered awake. Old screens glowed with alien text. The pendant around her neck pulsed brighter with every step. Eli glanced at her. The pendant, the lights, the machines, all of them were reacting to her. She was connected to this place. Maybe she was the last piece of it. At last, they reached a smaller chamber. Broken equipment filled the room, but one wall was covered with a giant door. The symbols on it glowed faintly. The girl touched the pendant again and whispered something. The door lit up, a crack of light split down its center. Eli gasped. A hidden passage, but before it opened fully, a sharp sound echoed from behind them. Metal scraping on stone. Eli froze. Out of the shadows, faint red lights appeared. Not eyes, not human torches, but scanning beams. Machines, old security drones, were waking. The girl grabbed Eli's hand tightly, her eyes filled with urgency. The drones moved closer, their lights glowing brighter. Eli's fear rose, but so did something else, courage. He pulled the girl toward the glowing door, his mind racing. He didn't know what lay beyond, but he knew one thing. Staying here meant death. The door slid open, filling the chamber with blinding light. With the alien girl by his side, Eli stepped through, and the dead world behind them stirred, as if remembering its own past. The blinding light faded as the heavy door slid shut behind Eli and the alien girl. For a moment, silence returned, and Eli could hear only his own heartbeat. The air was cooler here, fresher, as if this hidden place had been sealed for ages. The girl leaned against him, weak but still holding her glowing pendant tightly. Her strange violet-silver eyes scanned the chamber. This new place was different from the ruins above. The walls were smooth metal, untouched by dust. Strange tubes pulsed faintly with light, and the ground vibrated softly as if the entire room was alive. Eli helped her sit against the wall. Her breathing was heavy, but she pointed toward the pendant at her chest and then to the glowing tubes on the wall. Eli followed her gaze. The tubes brightened the moment her pendant pulsed. It was like the two were speaking to each other. Eli frowned. You control this place? His words were soft, though he knew she couldn't understand. The girl did not reply. Instead, she pressed her hand against the wall. A section of the metal shifted, sliding open to reveal a hollow chamber. Inside were broken tools, strange crystals and small devices that hummed faintly. She picked up one crystal and placed it in Eli's hand. It glowed warmly against his skin. Eli stared, wide-eyed. This was no ordinary stone. It felt alive, vibrating, softly, almost like a heart. The girl placed her hand over his and spoke a word, slow, careful. Eli didn't understand it, but the way she said it felt important, almost like a name. Before he could ask more, the ground shook again. Not like before. This time it was heavy, rhythmic, as if something large was moving through the tunnels outside. The girl's face darkened. Her fingers tightened around the pendant. She whispered a word, trembling. Eli caught the fear in her voice. Whoever, or whatever, was coming, it was no friend. Eli's mind raced. If the drones had been waking, then something worse might follow. His people told stories about scavengers who came to dead worlds searching for old tech to sell. Raiders, mercenaries, killers. He had never seen them himself, but he knew one thing. They always followed signals. And the pod lighting up, the machines waking, the door opening. It had all been a signal. Someone was hunting. Eli moved quickly, pulling the girl to her feet. She was weak, but she leaned on him, her eyes burning with determination. Together, they moved deeper into the chamber, searching for a way out. They passed more glowing walls, machines flickering awake and strange screens showing unreadable symbols. Eli could not understand them, but the girl touched the screen gently, and the alien language shifted. For a moment, the screen showed a star map, galaxies and glowing lines of war. Eli's breath caught, whole planets marked with fire, a trail of destruction. The girl's eyes filled with sadness. She pressed her hand against one burning star and whispered something under her breath. Eli understood nothing, yet he felt everything. Loss, grief, memory. Her people had been here, and they had fallen. Eli swallowed hard. You're the last one. The girl looked at him, her eyes shimmering with pain but also with strength. She touched the pendant again, and suddenly a small hologram burst from it. A vision of warriors like her, glowing with the same star-like patterns on their skin. They stood tall, fierce, holding weapons made of light. Then the vision faded, leaving only her. Eli realized the truth. She was not just a survivor. She was important. She carried the last piece of her people's power, and others would want it. The sound of heavy footsteps drew closer. Metal clanged against stone. Voices echoed faintly down the tunnels. Low, sharp, human voices. Raiders. Eli's blood ran cold. He had heard enough campfire tales to know what that meant. Raiders killed without mercy. And if they saw the alien girl, they would take her. The girl seemed to understand as well. Her hand gripped Eli's tightly. Her eyes burned with silent words. Do not let them find me. Eli nodded. He didn't need to understand her language to know what she wanted. He couldn't abandon her now. The footsteps grew louder. Shadows flickered against the wall. Eli scanned the chamber and spotted a narrow tunnel near the corner. He pulled the girl toward it just as the main door behind them groaned open. Voices filled the chamber. Signals came from here, one said. Spread out. Find it. Eli's chest tightened. He pressed himself and the girl against the tunnel wall, moving silently into the darkness. His light stick was off, and his breaths came slow and careful. From the tunnel's edge, he glanced back. Raiders in armored suits scanned the chamber. Their helmets glowed red. One of them pointed to the still glowing pod on the far side. Something was in here, it's gone now. Another voice growled. Search deeper, whatever came alive here, it's worth a fortune. Eli's fists clenched. He knew they were talking about her. The girl leaned closer, whispering softly in her alien tongue. Eli couldn't understand, but he caught the one thing she was trying to say with her eyes. We must run. And so, deeper into the dark tunnel they went, their footsteps silent but their hearts loud. Behind them, the hunters spread out, their red light searching every shadow. The dead world was no longer empty. It had become a battlefield, and Eli had just chosen his side. The tunnel stretched on, narrow and twisting. Eli's hand gripped the girl's wrist as they moved quickly, their footsteps echoing faintly against the stone floor. Behind them, the metallic voices of the raiders grew louder. Red beams of light cut through the chamber they had just left, sweeping across the walls like hunting eyes. Eli's heart pounded. His lungs burned. Every sound he made felt too loud. The girl stumbled beside him, still weak, but she refused to stop. Her violet silver eyes glowed faintly in the dark, and the pendant at her chest pulsed faster, as if warning them of danger. A harsh voice echoed down the tunnel. They went this way. Eli froze. His stomach turned to stone. The raiders had seen them. The girl pulled on his arm, her expression sharp, urgent. Eli nodded quickly, forcing his legs to move faster. The tunnel sloped downward, the walls glowing, faintly with alien markings that seemed to light the way. But the more they ran, the louder the sounds behind them grew. Heavy boots, clanging weapons, the sharp hum of machines powering up. Eli's mind raced. He had spent his life exploring, mines crawling through tight shafts, learning every trick of survival underground. The raiders were dangerous, but these tunnels were his kind of place. If he could use them well, maybe, just maybe, they could escape. They reached a broken bridge that stretched across a deep chasm. The bridge was cracked, its metal beams hanging, loose. Below was only blackness. The girl looked at him with fear. Eli glanced back. The glow of red lights was drawing closer. He had no choice. Trust me, he whispered, though he knew she didn't understand. He grabbed her hand and stepped onto the bridge. The old metal groaned under their weight. Pieces of stone crumbled into the darkness below. Slowly, carefully, they moved across. Every step felt like the last. Halfway across, a sharp noise cut through the tunnel. A shot, a glowing bolt of energy smashed into the wall near Eli's head, throwing sparks into the air. The raiders were firing. "Run!" Eli shouted, though. The word was more to himself than her. They sprinted across the bridge. The old structure shook violently, metal bending under the strain. Another shot rang out, tearing through the side rail. They leapt off the bridge just as part of it collapsed into the chasm below. The crash echoed endlessly in the dark. Eli and the girl pressed against the far wall, gasping for breath. The girl's pendant glowed brighter, and she whispered something softly, holding her hand over the fallen bridge. For a moment, Eli thought she was praying. Then, to his shock, the fallen metal beams below began to tremble. The raiders reached the edge of the broken bridge. Their red light swept across the gap. "They can't escape now," one shouted. But then the broken beams suddenly shifted, rising like invisible hands were pulling them. They twisted together, sealing the gap again. The girl's eyes glowed, her skin shimmering with strange patterns of light. The raiders stopped. Stunned, one raised his weapon. "Take her alive, she has the key." Eli's chest tightened. The girl's powers were real, and now the raiders wanted her more than ever. "Come on," he urged, pulling her into another tunnel. They ran again, deeper and deeper into the ruins. The air grew hotter, the walls trembling as if the entire planet was awake. Strange machines buzzed faintly from hidden chambers. Finally, they stumbled into a vast cavern. Giant alien machines rose around them, their surfaces glowing faintly with life. Some were broken, others still hummed with energy. The cavern stretched. So far, Eli could barely see the other side. The girl pointed to a tall tower in the center of the cavern. She spoke quickly in her strange tongue, her eyes filled with determination. Eli didn't understand, but he knew. That tower mattered. Before they could move, the cavern filled with the sound of boots. Raiders poured into the space from tunnels above, their lights sweeping across the machines. They were trapped. Eli looked around desperately. Then he saw it. A mining lift half buried in rubble. It was old, but maybe it still worked. He grabbed the girl's hand and pulled her toward it. The raiders shouted, raising their weapons. Energy bolts flew past, smashing into the machines and filling the cavern with bursts of light. Eli ducked, dragging the girl behind a broken pillar. "Go," he whispered, shoving her toward the lift. He grabbed a loose piece of metal pipe from the ground. His hands shook, but he held it tight. The raiders were closing in fast. One leapt down from the upper ledge, landing in front of them. His helmet glowed red as he raised his weapon. Eli swung the pipe with all his strength. The blow connected, knocking the weapon aside. The raider staggered, surprised by the boy's courage. Eli struck again, screaming with fear and anger. The raider fell back, his armor sparking. The girl shouted something, her voice sharp. Eli turned. Her pendant was glowing like fire. She raised her hand and a pulse of energy blasted from her palm, striking another raider. The man flew back, crashing into a machine with a burst of sparks. Eli's eyes widened. Her power was stronger than he had ever imagined, but using it came at a cost. The girl collapsed to her knees, weak again, her glow fading. Eli rushed to her, pulling her to the lift. The raiders shouted behind them, firing more shots. Energy bolts struck the walls, the floor, machines exploding all around. Eli smashed his fist against the lift controls. To his surprise, the old machine sputtered, then groaned as it came alive. The lift began to rise slowly, pulling them upward. The raiders fired wildly, bolts striking the sides of the lift. Eli ducked, shielding the girl with his body. Sparks rained down as the lift creaked upward, higher and higher. At last, the cavern floor grew smaller below them. The raiders shouted in frustration, their voices echoing. But Eli knew this wasn't over. He looked at the girl, still weak but holding the glowing pendant tightly. Her eyes met his, filled with fear but also trust. The chase wasn't finished. It had only begun. The lift screeched as it stopped at the top of the cavern. Eli and Tai. The alien girl stepped out, their breaths heavy. The air here was warmer, filled with a faint hum. Strange glowing veins ran through the walls, pulsing slowly, like blood through the body of a sleeping giant. Eli helped the girl to sit against a broken console. She looked pale, drained from using her strange power. Still, her eyes never left the pendant in her hand. It pulsed, steady and strong as if it were alive. For a while they both sat in silence, listening to the hum of the machines around them. But Eli's mind was loud with questions. He looked at her, his voice shaking. "What is this place? What happened here? Why are they after you?" He knew she could not understand him, but the words spilled out anyway. He had to say them. The girl tilted her head, as if she felt his confusion. Slowly, she pressed the pendant against the console. Instantly, the old machine flickered awake. Symbols glowed across the cracked screen. Then the symbols shifted, shapes turning, lines moving until they formed images. Eli's eyes widened. The screen showed a city, tall towers shining bright, filled with people like her. They laughed, worked, and lived under a golden sky. The world was alive, beautiful. Then the images changed. Ships appeared in the sky, massive and dark. Beams of fire rained down. The city burned. Towers crumbled. The people fought back, their glowing skin flaring with power, their weapons shining with light. But the enemy was too strong. One by one, the cities fell. Eli's throat went dry. He watched silently as the world turned to ash. The girl's hands trembled. Her eyes shimmered with tears as the screen showed the last part. Great machines sinking into the ground, sealing themselves away. Then silence. The world died. Eli whispered almost to himself. This planet. It was theirs. The girl nodded slowly. She touched the pendant again and the image changed. Now it showed the planet's core, glowing faintly in the dark. Strange machines surrounded it, broken and cracked. The glow of the core flickered weakly, almost gone. She looked at Eli, then pressed the pendant to her chest. She said a single word, soft but clear. Even though he did not know her language, he felt its meaning. Life. Eli's eyes widened. He understood. The pendant wasn't just a memory of her people. It was the key to something greater. It could restart the heart of this dead world. He looked around at the glowing veins in the walls, at the machines humming faintly. They were waiting for her, waiting for the key. Eli's hands shook. You can bring it back. The girl gave a small nod. Her eyes were filled with pain, but also with determination. Before Eli could say more, a sharp echo cut through the silence. Voices. Boots on metal. The raiders had found their trail. The girl's face hardened. She gripped the pendant tightly, then pointed to a narrow path that led deeper into the complex. Eli helped her to her feet. Together they moved quickly, the hum of machines growing louder as they went. The tunnel opened into a vast chamber. At its center was a towering machine, shaped like a great spiral that reached into the darkness above. Its surface was cracked, but faint streams of light ran across it, pulsing weakly. The girl stopped, staring at it with wide eyes. She whispered something, a word filled with awe and sorrow. Eli looked at the machine, his skin tingling. He didn't need to understand her language to know what it was. The core engine, the heart of the planet. The pendant glowed brighter in her hand. The veins in the walls pulsed faster, responding to it. The machine trembled, lights flickering across its surface, but then, "Stop right there!" The shout echoed across the chamber. Raiders poured in through the tunnel behind them, weapons raised. Their leader stepped forward, his helmet shining, with red light. His voice was cold, sharp. "You think you can hide her, boy? She's worth more than your whole mining colony. Hand her over, and maybe we'll let you live." Eli's chest tightened. His hands balled into fists. He stood in front of the girl, blocking her from the raiders' sight. The leader laughed darkly. "Brave but foolish. Do you even know what she is? She carries the last spark of a dead race, and we're going to take it." The girl clutched Eli's arm, her eyes filled with fear. But then, slowly, they shifted to determination. She whispered one word to him, urgent and clear. "Run." But Eli didn't move. He stared at the raiders, his heart pounding. He thought of his father, of the miners who worked in the dark every day, of the dead world above that everyone believed was just ruins. Now he knew the truth. This planet wasn't just ruins, it was waiting for her, for this moment, and he couldn't let them take her. The raiders stepped closer, weapons glowing. The core engine behind them pulsed faintly, like a giant heart about to wake. Eli swallowed hard, fear burning in his chest, but he stood his ground. The truth of the dead world was clear now. It could live again, if they survived. The chamber shook with the hum of the core engine. Its faint light flickered like a heartbeat, waiting, listening. Eli stood in front of the alien girl, his fists tight while the raiders closed in. The leader's red visor gleamed as he stepped forward. "Move aside, boy. She doesn't belong to you. She doesn't belong here. She belongs to us." Eli's throat was dry, but his voice came out steady. "She's not yours." The raider laughed, a sharp, cruel sound. "Look at you, a miner's son, dirt under your nails. You think you can protect her? You don't even know what she is." The girl clutched Eli's arm, her eyes full of fear. Yet there was also trust, silent trust. The raider raised his weapon. Last chance. Eli's heart pounded. He knew he could not win. These men were armed, trained, killers. He was just a boy with no weapon but his courage. But something inside him refused to move. The leader's finger tightened on the trigger. And then, the core engine roared. The chamber filled with light, pulsing from the walls. The girl's pendant glowed fiercely, responding to the engine. The raiders staggered, blinded for a moment. The girl stepped forward, holding the pendant high. Her weak body shook, but her eyes blazed with determination. The leader snarled, "She's activating it! Stop her!" The raiders fired. Eli moved without thinking. He threw himself in front of the girl. The blast struck him hard, knocking him to the ground. Pain tore through his body. His breath caught. The girl cried out, dropping beside him. Her hands trembled as she touched his wound. Her glowing eyes filled with tears. She whispered words he could not understand, but he felt their meaning. "Don't leave me." Eli's vision blurred. He forced a smile. "Run. Save yourself." But the girl shook her head fiercely. She pressed the pendant against his chest. Its light spread through him, warm and powerful. His pain eased, though his body remained weak. She was giving him her strength. The core engine answered. The spiral tower blazed with light. The ground trembled as if the planet itself was waking. Cracks of green light split through the stone floor, glowing like veins of life. The raiders stumbled, panicking. "What's happening?" The leader roared. "Stop her now!" But the girl rose to her feet, standing taller than before. Energy flowed around her, patterns glowing bright across her skin. She raised her hand, and the pendant flared. A wave of force burst through the chamber, knocking the raiders back like leaves in a storm. Their weapons flew from their hands, clattering against the floor. The leader alone stood, his armor sparking, his eyes burning with rage. He charged forward, drawing a blade of crackling energy. Eli, still weak but alive, pushed himself up. He grabbed a broken metal rod from the ground and stepped in front of the girl again. The leader swung his blade. Eli blocked clumsily, sparks flying. The force nearly threw him off his feet, but he held on. "You're nothing," the raider spat. "Just a boy." Eli's arms trembled, but he met the man's glare. "Maybe, but she trusts me, and I won't let you take her." The girl lifted her pendant. Its glow poured into the rod Eli held, turning it into a blade of pure light. Eli gasped, then swung with all his strength. The clash lit up the chamber. The raider staggered, his armor splitting under the strike. With a final scream, he fell, crashing onto the stone. His red visor flickered, then went dark. Silence. Eli dropped the glowing rod, his chest heaving. His whole body shook. He turned to the girl. She was pale, drained from giving him her power. Her knees buckled, and Eli caught her before she fell. "You saved me," he whispered. Her hand rested on his cheek. Her eyes glowed faintly as she whispered a single word. A word he didn't know, but somehow understood. Friend. The core engine roared louder. Light poured from its cracks, rising like rivers of fire into the air. The chamber shook violently. Stones rained down. The girl clutched the pendant, her expression torn between hope and fear. She looked at Eli, then at the core. He understood. She had a choice to make. If she gave everything to the engine, the planet might live again. But it could take her life. She whispered a soft word, her hand glowing over the pendant. "No," Eli said, shaking his head. He grabbed her hand. "Not like this. There has to be another way." Her eyes filled with sorrow, but also with peace. She pressed her forehead gently against his, closing her eyes. The pendant flared brighter, as if it could hear both of them. The core engine answered with a thunderous roar. Eli held her close, his heart breaking. He knew what she was about to do. She was ready to sacrifice herself. The chamber shook as if the world itself had taken a breath after centuries of silence. The core engine blazed with light, its spiral towers alive with energy. The sound was deafening, like thunder rolling through stone. Eli held the alien girl in his arms, his heart racing. Her pendant glowed brighter than ever, pulsing with raw power. Her face was pale, her body weak, but her eyes burned with determination. She whispered a word, placing her hand over the core's surface. The entire chamber responded. Light raced across the floor, spreading into the walls, running like rivers of fire. Eli gripped her arm tightly. "Stop! It's too much! You'll die!" She looked at him, her silver violet eyes soft but full of resolve. She touched his cheek gently, though her voice spoke in words he could not understand. Her meaning was clear. "This is my duty." Eli shook his head fiercely. "No! You don't have to do this alone." The core's hum grew louder. Sparks of green and blue light burst into the air, swirling like stars. The entire chamber glowed, brighter and brighter, as though a sun was being born beneath the earth. The raiders who had survived stumbled to their feet, their faces hidden by cracked helmets. Panic filled their voices. "She's waking the planet," one shouted. Another raised a weapon, aiming at the girl. Eli moved without thinking. He grabbed the glowing rod that still lay on the ground and swung it with all his strength. The weapon shattered against the wall, but it was enough to knock the raider back. The girl's pendant flared again, sending a wave of energy through the chamber. The remaining raiders screamed as their armor cracked, sparks flying. They fled, their voices echoing into the tunnels above. And then, silence again. Only Eli and the girl remained in front of the core. She swayed, nearly collapsing. Eli caught her, his arms tight around her fragile frame. "You can't give everything," he whispered, his voice breaking. "There has to be another way. Please." The girl's lips curved into a faint smile. She lifted the pendant one last time, but instead of pressing it into the core, she placed it against Eli's chest. His body jolted with warmth. The light of the pendant flowed into him, burning and alive. His skin glowed faintly, his veins filled with energy. He gasped, feeling strength he never knew possible. The girl spoke, her voice soft, almost fading. One word, a gift. Share. Eli understood. She was not giving her life away. She was sharing it with him. Together they turned toward the core. Eli pressed his glowing hand against the machine, and the girl placed her hand over his. The reaction was instant. The core blazed with a light so bright it seemed to pierce the planet itself. The spiral tower shook. The ground split with radiant cracks and streams of energy raced upward through the tunnels. Above, the dead world stirred. Ash and dust blew away as green sprouts broke through cracked stone. Rivers of light poured across the land, turning to streams of water. The red sky shifted, clouds rolling, parting to reveal a hint of blue. The planet was waking. Eli felt the energy surge through him, almost too much to bear. His teeth clenched, his body shaking, but the girl's hand anchored him. Her strength guided his, their powers joined. At last the core released one final burst of energy. The chamber exploded with light. And then, quiet. When Eli opened his eyes, he lay on the stone floor, breathing hard. The girl was beside him, her body weak, but alive. Her skin still glowed faintly, though dimmer than before. She turned her head slowly, her eyes meeting his. For the first time, she gave a small, peaceful smile. Eli looked around. The chamber was no longer dark and broken. It pulsed with life, the walls glowing with green veins of energy. The core stood tall, burning steady, no longer dying. They had done it. He laughed softly, the sound shaking with relief. We did it. We actually did it. The girl reached out, her fingers brushing his hand. Her lips moved, forming a soft word. He didn't know her language, but this time he didn't need to. He understood. Thank you. Together they rose slowly, walking toward the tunnel that led upward. When they emerged onto the surface, Eli gasped. The land was no longer only stone and ash. Tiny green shoots pushed through the soil, reaching for the light. The air smelled fresh for the first time in his life. The red sky was fading, replaced with soft streaks of blue. The girl tilted her head back, staring at the sky. Her eyes filled with wonder, but also with sadness. She touched the pendant, which now glowed faintly in her palm. She whispered a word, her voice trembling. Eli didn't understand, but he heard the weight in it, a memory of her people, a promise to them. Then she looked at him. Her eyes, though tired, held fire again. She raised her hand to the sky, pointing at the stars beyond, and at last she spoke one word he understood clearly. War. Eli's breath caught. The planet was alive again. But something greater was coming. The enemy that had destroyed her world was still out there, and now they would come looking. Eli stood beside her, his fists tight, his heart steady. He was just a miner's son. But he had seen the truth, and he had made a choice. This was not the end. It was the beginning. New dawn for the planet, for the girl, and for him.